We've been asking for a long time to know what the deal's about. And Labour, we promised independent review. For you, the people of New Zealand. But we'll tell you afterwards. Wait till you feel the effect. We need to speed it through. Like right now, we're signing it.
Pretty about climate change.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we can move at all. What did you call it again? The patriarchal and regressive TPP?
Labour have now been spinning a statement saying that this is no longer going to be a problem, when in fact it's only a few countries that have decided out of all of them that they are not going to sue each other, when in fact corporate offices can move countries. The countries that didn't make this agreement, they haven't committed to not suing government. The clauses that have been changed, that they've said, oh, we've fixed everything, are just very, very small clauses in relationship to government contracts. It doesn't stop corporations from suing for things that aren't government contracts. Like if a company comes into New Zealand and opens up business, for example, something like water extraction or mining, and the government decides to put some environmental controls in there to say, oh, we want to put royalties on water or taxes, they can go ahead and sue. That's not a government contract, and the ISDS clauses that were suspended but not removed, the instant the US does an about change and says, we want into this, all those suspended clauses come into action again.
This is cementing us into a deal. 75% of New Zealanders say that there should be proper impact assessments done, which is what Labour said they would do before they got into government. And that's our point, that it is cementing us into old modes of thinking which are not compatible with the challenges that we face in the 21st century. This process should have been slowed down when Labour came in. They should have kept to their promises and done some proper impact assessments on jobs and health and how the distribution of this supposed increase in GDP is going to actually affect people.
I'm against the TPPA agreement because there's no impact assessment on climate change, and that's our biggest risk in the world at the moment.
We need to start looking at ethical forms of trade, ethical and environmentally sustainable.
People are focusing on money, money, money. And it's the big corporations that are getting most of the money, and the ordinary citizens are losing out.
Yeah, I think they just need to learn to trust us as a government, to not ask so many questions, and know that, you know, we've been doing this kind of deal for a long time, and we are just going to push ahead with it, whatever they do anyway.
They say it's not going to affect the Farm Act model, but with the cost of medications, with extended patents on certain drugs, it will end up costing New Zealanders one way or the other.
I think the TPPA is signing away ecological rights, and I'm really adverse to it.
The TPPA was written by lawyers for multinational corporations. It was not developed by governments, and it was designed by them to shift authority from our own legislation so that when we pass laws to protect our people at workplace or our environment, our precious rivers, our climate, that might threaten their maximum profits. And so they would take us to court. And that actually, by the treaty, would override our parliament. I think it's very hard for people to understand that we would actually sign something that would give away our parliamentary authority over this country. And that's the part that people aren't grasping. It's talked about as a trade agreement, but the core of it is really about shifting authority from our parliament to an offshore court that's bound by the treaty to give precedence to corporate profits over our people.
It's insulting that it's being signed on International Women's Day, because it really isn't a good thing for women, and particularly poor women all over the world. So while New Zealand may have a gain in GDP, that doesn't mean that that money will be distributed fairly for Labour. The worst political flip-flop of the century award. Could you please move?
Vote for you guys again. We'd like to get out of the TPP, but we can't. Biggest flip-flop in political history. Well done. Thank you very much.
Shame on you, Ruth. Shame on Labour.
Shame on Labour. Shame on Labour. Shame on Labour. Woo!